Spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to John.
Glory to you, O Lord.
After 5,000 had eaten their fill, the disciples of Jesus saw him walking on the sea. On the next day, the crowd that remained on the other side of the lake saw that there had been only one boat there, and Jesus had not entered the boat with his disciples, but that his disciples had gone away alone. Other boats from Tiberias came near the place where they had eaten the bread after the Lord had given thanks. So when the crowd saw that Jesus was not there, nor his disciples, they themselves got into the boats and went to Capharnaum seeking Jesus. When they found him on the other side of the lake, they said to him, "Rabbi, when did you come here?" Jesus answered them, "Truly, truly, I say to you, you are seeking me not because you saw signs, but because you ate your fill of the loaves. Do not work for the food that perishes, but for the food that endures to eternal life, which the Son of Man will give to you, for on him God has set a seal." Then they said to him, "What must we do to be doing the works of God?" Jesus answered them, "This is the work of God, that you believe in him whom he has sent." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
The readings that the church gives us today offers us a rich and of much needed food for thought and for reflection. In the first reading from the Acts of the Apostles, we have the edifying and the inspirational story of Stephen, the first martyr who resembles in so many ways the person of Jesus. In the Gospel, we have the ongoing reflection that comes from the multiplication of the loaves, of Jesus walking on the water, and the people keep following Jesus, thinking that they will get 24/7 non-stop food whenever they wanted it. Now, God is the one who provides for my immediate and personal needs. Now that sounds good, and it is good indeed. But the sad opposite of it could also happen. If I have all my material needs met, then I have no need of God. So St. John in his gospel, entire gospel, he wants all to avoid all sensationalism when it comes to the miracles and the healings of Jesus. In fact, he doesn't use those words at all. He uses the word signs when it comes to miracles and healing, and that sign is what points to Jesus, who is the way, the truth, and the life. So when Jesus multiplies bread, it is because he is the bread of life. So the gospel challenges us to see how we see and how we perceive God. Is it merely to satisfy merely my material needs, or to embrace Jesus for all of life? Or more correctly, to embrace the values all about Jesus, the values of the kingdom of forgiveness and mercy, compassion and care, justice and solidarity. True religion does not make us turn inward or be self-centered. True religion makes us outgoing, other-centered, because we are rooted in God. And the more we become like Jesus, the more we will grow in all areas of our faith and of our life. Now, this is what we see happening in Stephen in the first reading. He has been so immersed in the life of Jesus, so plunged, the word actually baptism means that, to be immersed and plunged into the life of Jesus, that he resembles Jesus so much. And that happens when we allow the word of God to do to us, because this very word comforts the troubled, but it also troubles the comfortable. And that's what it's precisely doing to the authorities, because when they see Stephen, who now resembles Jesus so much, they are troubled, they are disturbed, they feel threatened at the impact that Jesus and his followers are making. They think that by killing the messenger, they will kill the message. But that didn't work with Jesus. It's not going to work with Stephen. In fact, the numbers increased because of the persecution. No wonder it was said in the early church and of the early church, the blood of martyrs is the seed of Christianity. It was so then, it will be so even now. Now, in the limited time I have today, I'd like to speak about two aspects that affect us, taken from the first reading, that affects us in our country, our society, our church, but particularly in the context of the Eucharist we celebrate, in our homes, our marriages, our families. We talk about the death of Stephen, but today's reading spells out two aspects that led to his death: jealousy and slander. These religious authorities are so jealous of this man Stephen, is so full of life, who's rooted in what faith is all about. And that jealousy is all that they motorizes them to destroy Stephen. Let's take a look at how jealousy can affect our lives in society, but particularly in our homes and families. We call jealousy or envy the green-eyed monster. It is a monster because it not only destroys others, but it destroys ourselves. Because in pulling others down, we end up pulling ourselves too. Now, jealousy is quite common. It goes back all the way when Cain was jealous of Abel, when the brothers of Joseph in the Old Testament were jealous of their younger brother, Joseph. And then King Saul was jealous of David's popularity. And so, jealousy has been around a long time and is active and alive even today. Now there could be many reasons for jealousy, but it's important to become aware of it and to see whether it's operative in my life and to admit it. It could be due to a number of reasons. Some might be laughable, but for some it is really, really serious. It happens quite often when we compare ourselves with others. Maybe because of their personal qualities or their abilities, their talents, their gifts, their looks, or what possessions they have. And jealousy makes us feel so low and depressed about ourselves that we just want to tear the other person down. It burns within us. And so, instead of appreciating the gift of someone else, we try to burn them down. Sometimes jealousy might spring up because of a very weak and broken image of ourselves. Because if you think that you're inferior, you want to show the opposite, that you want to show you are better than the best. And it's so closely linked to one's own insecurity in accepting oneself for what one really is. So sometimes we find it so hard to accept somebody is richer than us, better than us, or in a better placed position than we find ourselves. We feel jealous when the attention is turned to someone else and not to myself. And therefore, jealousy can be very destructive. Now, this jealousy manifests itself in different ways. One way is a jealous person finds it very hard to compliment somebody else because they think if I cut the legs of others, I will seem taller. Sometimes jealousy is we are afraid to affirm them, to appreciate them, to express our gratitude towards them. And you find that this is a secret kind of a jealousy. Because to refuse to acknowledge, to praise, to affirm is a sign of a moral immaturity and a personal insecurity. Sometimes a jealous person will not just refuse to affirm one another, but make every effort to put them down. And this is quite often done through gossip. Because a jealous person sees the other as a threat, a rival, even an enemy. A jealous person refuses to share with others their ideas, their thoughts, their resources because they want the other person to remain lower than them. And therefore, to address this sin of jealousy, it's important, first of all, to accept the strengths and the weaknesses we have about ourselves and not to measure our success by marching to the drumbeat of someone else. Sometimes we are so blind that we don't see the gifts and the blessings we have received. Rather, when we have these gifts, is to offer it for the glory of God, for God's kingdom. And if somebody is doing it better than me, I should be grateful. If someone is not doing it better than us, but are getting all the credit, leave it be. Because some are so afraid that the other person will outshine us, will get more credit than us. And that just eats into them. This is a scenario that we see so often happening around in society, in our circle of friends, in our homes, and in our families. And sometimes we see that such a person, by attacking the one they're jealous of, would do it in many ways. And one evident way is, which brings me to the second point, is slander, quite often through gossip. Now again, slander goes back into the Old Testament times and even earlier. Queen Jezebel was slandered Naboth to take off his vineyard. We find that Susanna in the Old Testament was slandered by two persons who pretended to and say things about her which were not true. When for some people, when it's not possible to obtain what they want, when they want, in the manner they want, then they subtly begin to use slander, gossip, lies to destroy the other person. Now, this is more than just chit-chat. It is something that is so destructive, because you're not only destroying God's work, you're destroying a person by something so nasty, because it's fueled by hatred. Quite often, falsehood, lies and slander go hand in hand because they need each other. The Apostle James in his letter says, gossipers are people who kill. They kill others because the tongue kills as a knife. Pope Francis has said repeatedly, he says, beware. A gossiper is a terrorist because with his tongue he hurls the bomb, he or she, and leaves calmly. But the thing that hurled bomb says destroys others' reputation. And then he says, don't forget, to gossip is to kill. Now, this slander, gossip is done in a variety of ways. Sometimes anonymous letters, planted gossip, whispering campaign, or we'll say, I only heard about it. But you're already trying to give weight to it by repeating that gossip. And such perpetrators will step over everybody else to get what they want. There's a lovely biblical guidance which says, love persons and use things. Sin happens when we use persons because we love things. And such people who are driven by this kind of both jealousy and gossip and slander, they turn the Our Father upside down because they say, my kingdom come, my will be done. That's how they express. And finally they say, mine is the kingdom, mine is the power, mine is the glory. It can be so destructive. Now, Stephen, in the first reading, showed us what it means to be a disciple of Jesus. He faced terrible jealousy and slander. In fact, it even killed him. Sometimes, if we look into our lives, we have been victims of somebody else's jealousy or slander or maligning, causing tremendous pain and damage to us, to who we are, our reputation. But what it does is gradually weakens relationships because it is based on the hurt feelings of the past. And this can be so destructive in relationships. Sometimes when this exists between husband and wife, between a sibling rivalry when they're children but now as adults becomes something terrible, between friends who were formerly friends but now are broken away because of these. And so it's so important to really focus as the readings challenge us. There is no need to be jealous, rather to be satisfied with who you are. Because on the last day, God will not ask you how good were your ideas, what degrees you had, how much money you had in your bank balance. On the last day, we will not be asked, why did you not sing like Francis or dance like Mary? But they will ask you, did you use the gifts that you had and make a difference in the world? Because we are responsible for the gifts and talents that we have been blessed with. And we must give witness to God with the gifts that we have, what Stephen did. Because all these gifts are meant for the building up of the community, the building up of your family, the building up of your home. And so at the offertory, let us visually imagine that we are putting ourselves, the gifts of who we are, into that chalice so that we will be transformed and that we, receiving it in communion, will be strengthened to be that wonderful witness, and we will not be affected by the pain that jealousy and slander can bring into our lives.